Standing on the polished marble floor while my husband pinned me down by my hair was the exact moment I realized that high society is just a cage built out of quiet cruelty. 200 people dressed in black tie attire watched the entire attack, yet not a single person moved a finger or said a word to help me. That single evening was supposed to be the absolute pinnacle of my career, but it quickly devolved into the nightmare that exposed the absolute rotten core of the family I had married into. My name is Kendra Reynolds, and for 4 miserable years, I was married to a man named Harrison Sterling, a trust fund heir who believed money could purchase human dignity. I had spent 7 relentless years rising through the corporate ranks from a simple desk analyst to executive director, regularly pulling 100-hour weeks while ignoring every subtle insult his mother Victoria threw my way about career women destroying traditional homes. I shrank myself constantly, foolishly hoping that if I lowered my voice and worked twice as hard, they might finally grant me a sliver of their respect. When my board of directors selected the Sterling estate for my promotion dinner, Harrison agreed immediately, though I failed to catch the deep jealousy hiding behind his sudden enthusiasm. I had purchased a sleek midnight blue dress specifically for the occasion, and during the first hour, I let my guard down as my boss delivered a glowing toast about my leadership skills. Standing beside me for the cameras, Harrison forced a rigid smile. But every time a guest mentioned that my new salary eclipsed his allowance, his jaw tightened into a lethal edge. The mask slipped completely when his father made a loud joke about successful women running the household, sending a polite wave of laughter through the crowd while Harrison went entirely cold. He dragged me toward the darkened staircase under the guise of grabbing fresh air, and the moment we stepped out of direct view, his hand slammed across my face so hard that my earring ripped free and skittered across the floor. He grabbed my hair, pulling my head back until I was staring at the chandelier, whispering venomously that I had stripped him of his dignity in front of the only people who mattered. The horrifying part was not just the physical blow, but the heavy silence that fell across the room when the surrounding guests turned and chose to stare straight through me. Victoria casually stepped out from the crowd, not to check on my bleeding lip, but to stand beside her son and murmur that I had brought this humiliation upon myself by daring to outshine my husband. In that horrific moment, something fundamental within me broke, discarding years of fear and replacing my terror with a cold, absolute sense of clarity. I gathered what was left of my strength, excused myself into the guest bathroom, locked the heavy wooden door, and stared at the dark bruise blooming across my face in the mirror. With trembling fingers, I called my older brother Vance, an elite private security operator who had spent his adult life protecting high-profile targets and exposing corporate corruption. Listening to my unsteady voice, Vance shifted instantly from a protective brother into a dangerous authority, telling me to stay in the open room and keep my phone ready because his team was already rolling out. I cleaned the blood from my chin, adjusted my dress, and stepped back into the ballroom with my head held high, absolutely refusing to offer them the satisfaction of seeing me break down again. Harrison confronted me near the grand bar, lowering his voice to warn me that my arrogance was pushing him to punish me further if I did not fix my attitude immediately. Victoria stood just a few feet away with her arms crossed, offering a cold observation about how proper wives always know how to make their husbands look powerful in public. Instead of apologizing like I usually did, I looked Harrison dead in the eye, offered a bitter smile, and thanked him for demonstrating exactly who he was in front of everyone. A flicker of genuine panic crossed his face as he realized that his familiar tools of fear and intimidation were suddenly failing to make me shrink. The clock on the wall seemed to freeze as the minutes dragged on, with Harrison leaning in to whisper subtle threats about what would happen once the guests went home, unaware that his absolute ruin was already pulling into the driveway. Roughly 50 minutes after my call, 3 black armored vehicles pulled up to the front entrance, and the entire room went completely silent as Vance walked through the main doors. Wearing a crisp charcoal suit, my brother ignored the confused whispers of the crowd, walking straight up to me to place a gentle hand on my shoulder while checking my face for damage. Once he confirmed I was okay, he turned toward Harrison, his voice carrying clearly across the entire ballroom as he asked if Harrison was the coward who struck my sister tonight. Harrison began to stutter out excuses about a private domestic disagreement, but Vance calmly pulled out his tablet, revealing that his tech team had already breached the estate security servers and pulled the high-definition video of the assault. He cast the file directly onto the massive presentation screens near the bar, forcing every wealthy donor, board member, and business associate in the room to watch Harrison strike me in agonizing, undeniable detail. The surrounding crowd gasped in horror, instantly backing away from Harrison and his mother as their pristine social standing vaporized in a single second. Vance then delivered the final blow by announcing that his firm was officially terminating all pending security infrastructure contracts with the Sterling family enterprise, stripping them of millions in business overnight. Harrison's father desperately tried to apologize to save their reputation, but Vance shut him down instantly, stating that apologies without real consequences were useless, and their consequence was total exposure. Standing in the middle of that room, I watched the grand illusion of their power crumble into absolute dust, and for the first time in years, I felt no guilt whatsoever. Over the next few months, I filed for divorce, secured a quiet apartment downtown, and began rebuilding a life centered around actual self-respect and personal peace. Word of that night stripped Harrison of his credibility, ruining his business prospects and leaving his mother's social reputation in absolute tatters among the elite circles she lived for. My own career flourished as I stepped into a senior corporate role, backed by leadership who valued my strength and absolute resilience. I learned that real strength is not about enduring abuse to keep the peace, but having the courage to tear down the walls that keep you hidden.